Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, here on this extremely hot Tuesday afternoon. It's burning, the sun's in my eyes. But aside from that, we have a little bit of a down day, like for basketball, but there was a lot of drama going on over the weekend. There was also a USA matchup that happened yesterday, which is what I'm going to be talking about in the first segment. As Team USA, they ended up beating the Australian team in USA basketball and the matchup. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that in the first segment. And then in the second segment, I'm going to be talking about the Clippers president speaking out on the speaking out on Kawhi Leonard and his little, instance with Team USA, because the president was rather surprised, like the president of the Clippers Association was rather surprised that Kawhi Leonard was taken off of the Team USA roster. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. Then in the third segment, I'm going to talk about Lauri Markkanen, as well as how the Golden State Warriors are interested in Lauri Markkanen with, the trades. And because there is a trade suggestion that they do have, or that Utah requested from Golden State, that I'm going to talk about. Then in the fourth segment, I'm going to talk a little bit about some basketball news, Cameron Payne signing with the Knicks, and an update on Bronny James in the Summer League, because that is a little bit of the drama that's been going on and that's going to be all in the fourth segment. We also have the fifth segment that I like to reveal at the end of the fourth segment, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Before I begin, however, I'd like to remind everybody to please go ahead and use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment. That is gsmcspodcast.net. It really helps the show, makes it more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is gsmcspodcast.net. And without further ado, let's go right ahead and go into our first segment, which is going to be Team USA beating Australia yesterday. Now, the score was actually really close. I wasn't expecting the score to be this close, and I made a little bit of a mistake in the last podcast. I thought that the game was going to happen at 12 o'clock midnight. I was wrong. It happened right when I was recording the segment, so oops, that was a really big mistake. But that's not going to happen again, because their next game, they play same time on Wednesday, so I will be covering the game, live. I'll be looking at it on my TV screen while at the same time doing my segments, so I'm going to be a little bit of a multitasker here, but I'll give, updates on the score and updates on the team success and what the team is doing and the starting lineup, because in this game, as I mentioned before in the previous segment, there was a starting lineup change. So Anthony Edwards was moved to the starting lineup, and Jason Tatum was also moved to the starting lineup in response to, I think it was, the matchups that Australia had for them, as well as, just the overall performance that Anthony Edwards was, giving out in this game. Now, he wasn't in my, players of the game for, today, but it's not like he didn't play well in this game. He ended the game 5 for 11 from the field with 14 points, and also was able to rally 2 assists, 4 rebounds, and 2 steals. Again, this wasn't my player of the game for Team USA, however. I actually have 2 of them, as usual. So Devin Booker ended up scoring 16 points, ended up getting 3 rebounds and 2 assists. And Anthony Davis, again, makes this list, being one of arguably the best player on Team USA. He ended the game with the most points, the most rebounds, and he only got 1 assist, but he was also able to record 2 blocks, as well as, that was basically it. Most of the rebounds were from the defensive side. Actually, they were split half and half. He got 7 defensive and 7 offensive rebounds. So, why isn't he starting? Nobody knows. But these last few games, Anthony Davis has completely outplayed Joel Embiid, despite the fact that Joel Embiid is starting. And, ironically, Joel Embiid had the fewest minutes on the court in this game. So, clearly, he should not be in the starting lineup. Clearly, Joel Embiid shouldn't be in the starting lineup. I'm sorry, he is embarrassing the United States with his style of play. It is gross. Now, he ended the game with 10 points, sure, but still, he should have way more production considering how he was such a competent player in the league. Now, he also ended up taking the most free throws, shocker, in the starting lineup. But at the end of the game, I mean, Devin Booker was the guy that ended up shooting the most free throws. He went 7 for 7 from the free throw line, but who else played really well in this game? Another player that's going to get like shoved under the rug for Team USA and their performance, Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, these past few games, he's ended with the best box plus minus in Team USA. So while he does come off the bench, he does bring immense value. Now, really, the starting lineup, it should have Kevin Durant in the starting lineup when he gets healthy, and Anthony Davis should be in the starting lineup. Look at these numbers. These are numbers that are with him coming off the bench. Imagine if he was to start. Now, he did get starting minutes. I mean, I wouldn't say that. Never mind. He didn't really get starting minutes because every single one of the starters, except for Joel Embiid, ended up having at least 20 minutes. Now, everyone else coming off the bench had 18 minutes, which isn't that bad. Like, I'm not really complaining about that, but I would much like to see Anthony Davis put into that starting lineup and get to play 20 minutes because I feel like he would bring so much more value than Joel Embiid. Now, on the opposing side for Australia, the best player for Australia was without a doubt, hold on, can I pull him up? There we go. Jock Landale. He played for Houston, he played for San Antonio, he played for the Suns, he played for a lot of NBA teams, and he ended up scoring 20 points, got 7 rebounds and 6 assists as well. And another player who I don't really like mentioning, by his name, and for personal reasons, Josh Giddey, he ended up getting 17 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists. Not really going to touch on his performance all that much because, I have mixed opinions on him. Now, about the actual game, like I said before, I was unable to really watch it because I didn't know that the game was going on while my podcast was going on, so it was kind of rough that I didn't get to see the entirety of the game. But from what I did see, it really, Team USA has always been a juggernaut of a monster, right? Like, it's always a juggernaut team to face in the Olympics. And this game didn't really feel like these guys were juggernauts, right? As you could tell by the score, it was really, really close. Like, Australia was scoring pretty efficiently, if you were to ask me. Like, they didn't really shoot that well from 3, which was the biggest difference maker between the United States and Australia. But they shot very well, from within inside the arc. So I feel like the biggest problem that Team USA has been going up against is, defense around the painted area and defense from within inside the 3-point area, right? Because when you think about it, that's really what the teams are. That's really what Team USA somewhat struggles in. Like, having Joel Embiid in that starting lineup, sure, he is a competent rim protector, but he's definitely not as competent of a rim protector as someone like Anthony Davis. Let's just face it. And most of these NBA starters and most of these NBA players, they're used to guarding shots from outside of the 3-point line. Like, you rarely see a bunch of players take mid-range shots in the NBA now. So adjusting the defense to try and, focus on the defense from within inside the arc is going to be a difficult task for this team, as, alluded to this 2-point shooting percentage. But aside from that, I mean, really, I'm very surprised that this team was unable to sort of pull away from Team USA and was able to sort of end up winning the game at the end of the day, right? Like, they ended up winning, sure, but I expected them to win by a lot more than just 6 points. Usually, Team USA wins in a blowout almost every single game. And when they don't win in a blowout in every single game, something is the matter, there is a problem, and, all of us USA fans, we get a little bit scared, I guess you could say, and intimidated, because it's like, okay, why are these guys, somewhat competitive? Like, we always destroy every single opposing lineup, no matter who it is. It doesn't matter what kind of player it is, right? Always Team USA seems to win. And, they ended up winning, but they didn't end up winning in quick enough fashion, I guess you could say. Like, they let them linger a little bit, which is something that, as Team USA, you don't want to make a habit of doing. Because USA basketball, it's USA's sport to beat, right? Like, that's the team that everyone wants to beat. So you can't let up. You can't allow a team to sort of stay within the game even a little bit, because if you allow them to do that, then they are going to do whatever they can to try and win the game in the end. And it's like, you just can't allow that to happen if you're a member of Team USA. It's a lot of pressure going into this game. I also should mention that Steph Curry was, despite the fact that the three-point line is really, really close, like, a lot closer than what the NBA players are used to, Steph Curry was really, really bad in this game. He shot 1 for 6 from 3, which is appalling for Steph. That is horrible. And we really need Steph to sort of step up in this game. We also need Joel Embiid to get on the bench. I am not going to sugarcoat it. Joel should not be starting. Period. Done. Get him on the bench. Steve Kerr did a very good job with the starting lineup, putting Anthony Edwards in there and putting Jason Tatum in there. Yes, they were fantastic. But Joel Embiid in that starting lineup is killing the United States. I would much rather he never plays a single minute for the United States ever again. I would very much rather have that than to deal with Embiid in the starting lineup. I would so much, like, Bam Adebayo, he was fantastic in this game. Like, Bam coming off the bench, he was great. He was 4 for 5 from the field and ended up shooting 2 free throws, made both of them. He didn't really get that many rebounds, but he was also sharing the court with Anthony Davis, at least from what I was seeing. And he ended up getting 10 points. Like, that's really, really good. That's the same production that Joel Embiid was giving on much better efficiency. Like, bench him. Plain and simple. But that's really all that I have to say for you guys on the first segment. Again, I'm not a big fan of Joel Embiid, as you guys can tell. I don't think he should be starting, but let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you think Joel Embiid should be starting just because of his name and his reputation in the NBA or whatever it is, or do you think he's actually a good fit for the lineup? Me personally, don't think he's a good fit. I think it's just not it. Like, in my personal opinion, Joel Embiid, he shouldn't even, if we're being technical, Joel shouldn't even be on the roster. Like, if we're being very, very serious, he should not be on Team USA's roster because, he should be playing for either the French team or Cameroon even. But aside from that, he does what he wants. He wants to get a gold medal. But yeah, like, really, and a lot of people on the internet and a lot of people on, like, the media, they also don't really agree with the fact that Joel Embiid should be in the starting lineup. I know I don't, but aside from that, we can go into the second segment, which is going to be about the Clippers president speaking out about, Kawhi Leonard not being on Team USA's roster. It's a little bit more complicated than what I initially thought. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that right after this short break. So be sure to stay tuned.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC basketball podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We have someone in the chat. Excuse me, Anthony Mob. I don't know how to pronounce that last name, so I'm just gonna call you Mob. He said hi, what's up? And oh, he has more comments. Have you already started to do your workups for the top prospects in the? Oh well, I don't do the MLB show, so. To be honest, though, if you really want to watch listen to MLB in the news, we do have a podcast for the MLB. I don't remember exactly when our host does the live segments for the MLB, but I'm pretty sure, I think it's like early in the morning. Again, I could be wrong on that, but he does upload on the show. So if you are interested in watching, baseball and listening to a podcast that we do, we also have that. I'm just not the host for that. I mainly do the basketball, which, speaking of basketball, we are going to get into the second segment, which is going to be on the Clippers president speaking out on Kawhi Leonard, because, he does have some things to say about, Kawhi Leonard not being on Team USA. And I'm just going to, put the title right here. Hopefully it just, it'll pop up. There we go. Pops up a little bit off the screen. Oops, can't really control that. But there we go. So that's going to be the segment that we're going to be doing today. And before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody to please remember to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. And before we go on into the second segment, there is another comment from Mob. I'm just gonna call him Mob just because it seems pretty quick, pretty simple. I like that. He meant to ask if I've started my workups for the top prospects in the 2025 draft for the NBA. Now, I honestly didn't really do that because I'm more focused on the prospects now in the summer league. Like, I'm just looking at the summer league and just waiting until the summer league ends, and then once around the midpoint of the summer league, I'm going to give my top 10 players that I think played really well in the summer league. And spoiler alert, Bronny is not one of them. And but aside from that, it's really, I don't really want to, jump the gun with the 2025 prospects when, we still have to get through the 2024 prospects that just got drafted right here. Or is that what you meant by the 2025 prospects? Because, this season 2024 to 2025 goes into that. But that's probably what you meant. I'm still waiting until the middle of the summer league for all my opinions to be formulated. But as of right now, no one really, I mean, obviously the number one pick hasn't struck my, I think the Atlanta Hawks did a horrible job at picking the number one pick. I would have rather went with Alex Sarr, but even then, it doesn't seem like Alexander Sarr is even the best draft pick that the Houston Rockets were even able to accumulate in the draft. So again, opinions are a little bit all over the place, and I don't want to, how do I say, give too much credit to some of these players, or give too little credit to some of these players until I actually have a good enough scale to just, and a good enough game span to derive all their performances from and just make my opinions on that. I'm not a really big fan of jumping the gun. A lot of people sort of learned that mistake when they were speculating that Victor Wembanyama was going to be a bust, and he turned out to not being a bust. Patience. That's really the most important factor, for me at least, with picking these rookies, and just making the assumptions on just how good they are and things of that nature. I usually like to wait a little bit until I have a good scale of games. But aside from that, we could go into this second segment, which is going to be about Kawhi Leonard and Clippers basketball, because the Clippers president actually had some things to say about Kawhi Leonard being off of Team USA, and the superstar Kawhi Leonard, I'm reading this off of an article right now, he was supposed to be a participant on Team USA, and what I thought happened was he just was like, nah, I'm not going to play. right? Because that's what Kawhi Leonard does every single time. Whenever he's not healthy or whenever he doesn't feel like he's able to play, he doesn't play. And so that's essential. I just thought that he was, that's what he was doing, just deciding not to play. But it turns out that wasn't entirely the case. It was more of like a mutual decision between both Kawhi and Team USA. And according to the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard could have played in the Olympics. Now, this article says, while there may have been initial reports indicating that it was the six-time All-Star's decision to pull out of the team, USA Basketball Managing Director Grant Hill himself confirmed that it was the team who sent Leonard home, a decision that is now being questioned by the Clippers. Now, according to other sources, the president actually didn't really agree with this decision from Team USA, and Clippers basketball of operations Lawrence Frank recently dropped the truth bomb about Leonard's current health. While the high-ranking team executive did not deny that their superstar forward is still nursing an injury, Lawrence is adamant that Kawhi is healthy enough to take part in the upcoming Olympic tournament. This was a quote that he said, at least reportedly from X or, Twitter, however you want to call the app. Lawrence Frank says Clippers were disappointed in USA Basketball's decision to pivot from Kawhi Leonard. Frank said Leonard looked good in the first few practices and there was no setback. Frank says he understands USA has to do what it feels best, but he felt Kawhi could play, which, is a little bit of a shift and in tone, I guess you could say, from what I expected from Kawhi and what I expected from Team USA, because I genuinely didn't think that Team USA was going to how do you say abandon Kawhi, I guess you could say. That's obviously, that's a little bit of an extreme word, but abandon is sort of the word that you would really use and would opt to decide to pick Derek White as opposed to Kawhi Leonard, it's a little bit odd. For me at least, I think it's a little bit odd because not only have we still not seen Derek White play a game yet, but it's imagine just how much more the Team USA, could have won by in some of these games if they actually had Kawhi Leonard on the roster. The fact that Derek White has yet to play a single minute is it's a bit underwhelming, but I do understand that, they still have to they have to wait a little bit, and some of these players, they do have to wait a bit. It is also disappointing that Kevin Durant isn't playing, but again, he's also injured, so we do have to wait for this roster to be 100%. It's we keep doing this Dragon Ball reference where it's this isn't even my final form or something like that, where we just have to keep playing with these injured rosters, and I'm just why can't we just get an actual healthy team? Why can't we do that? But I digress. So, according to this article continues going down, if anyone had any doubts surrounding the Clippers' involvement in Leonard's ousting, then this statement from the president should clear things up. Based off of Frank's statement here, it is clear that the Clippers wanted Kawhi to actually be a part of Team USA. And for their part, however, Team USA probably did not want to risk having a player on their squad who is not 100% when there are so many other healthier options available. I disagree with this, opinion. I would much rather have Kawhi on the roster as opposed to recruiting somebody else, because this is the best of the best. And I don't care that he's injured. I want to see Kawhi Leonard win a gold medal. As a fan of Kawhi, a fan when he plays, because again, whenever someone chooses not to play, my opinions on them sort of sour, because it's if that was me, I would have to be put on a wheelchair to not play. You'd have to drag me out of the game. You'd have to drag me off of the court in order to take me out. At least, that would be my mentality. And it's why players Anthony Edwards and Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, it's why they get so much praise, because you literally they'd either have to be unable to walk or unable to shoot or unable to do something on the court that actually hinders their game in order to actually get taken out. Kobe played with a broken finger, for crying out loud. And Anthony Edwards, he already understands that it's there are so many fans that save up money for a specific moment just to watch them play, and it's his responsibility to show up and actually play on the court. That's something that a lot of NBA athletes don't really do anymore, which it's kind of disheartening. I think it's really sad. But aside from that, we are out of time for this second segment. So now we will go ahead and go into the third segment where I focus on Lauri Markkanen and the Golden State Warriors being extremely interested in Lauri Markkanen and the Utah Jazz and their offer that they gave the Warriors in exchange for Lauri if the Warriors were to accept. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to be talking about the Golden State Warriors and their interest in Lauri Markkanen because, that's sort of been a very common, well, not really a common, that's sort of been a very popular trade target for the Golden State Warriors. Actually, you know what? I'm going to adjust the title a little bit because, Lauri Markkanen is kind of boring. Golden State Warriors interested in Lauri Markkanen. That's really they've been interested in them since the start of free agency, and in fact, they're so interested in them that they won't even let Andrew Wiggins play for Team Canada because they want to use him for trades, which I already have a podcast and I already have a segment where I explain my complete dislike for that move and just my disdain for the Warriors for doing that. But that's part of what makes them such a good organization and such a good front office, arguably top 5 front office of all time. I mean, they've created several championship teams in the span of a few years, and I mean, maybe their championship window has closed now, but, whenever you have a prime Steph Curry, you always have the opportunity to compete. At least that's my opinion. Now, we can actually go ahead and go into this next segment, which is about Lauri Markkanen and the Golden State Warriors and their interest in Lauri Markkanen. Now, the trade that they offered, I'm just pulling up the details of this trade. It was very, very, very expensive. Very extremely expensive, even for Golden State standards. They don't really seem as, they do seem as the type of team to try and get better, but I don't really think they seem the type of team that is willing to just get rid of every single asset that they have. So this trade that the Utah Jazz have reportedly offered for Lauri Markkanen contains a lot of pieces. The Jazz, they asked the Warriors for Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski, Moses Moody, multiple first-round picks in exchange for Lauri Markkanen. Now, I have no idea what on earth the front office is thinking. I have no idea, how much do they think that Lauri Markkanen is worth? I'm honestly stunned at this, trade proposal that the Jazz, this is according to Shams, do they think this man is like Kevin Durant? Do they think this guy is like LeBron James? They're practically asking the Golden State Warriors to give up everything that they have in exchange for one player That is absurd. That is a ridiculous trade. And considering how the Atlanta Hawks, how they gave up DeJounte Murray in exchange for 2 players and a couple of picks, like, and 2 of those players not even being that good or one of the top 2 options for the team, this is ridiculous value. Because, like, remember, the DeJounte Murray trade, it was consisted of Larry Nance, somebody else that I don't really remember, and 2 first-round picks. Now, I initially said that I was very surprised that the Pelicans were able to negotiate a deal where they didn't even have to give up Brandon Ingram. So, the fact that they didn't even have to give up their second-best player for somebody like DeJounte Murray, who arguably has the same amount of production as Lauri Markkanen, doesn't make any sense to me. It genuinely doesn't make any sense. Because it's like, who do you think Lauri Markkanen is? He's a great player, don't get me wrong. Lauri is a great player and brings tremendous value. But he's not worth, like, 3 players and multiple first-round picks. What is this, a Paul George deal? No. And even then, Paul George, that trade, the Paul George trade, like, from between OKC and the Clippers, for the Clippers, that was arguably the worst trade in the history of their organization and in the history of basketball, period. Ooh, and I completely forgot to mention that, R.I.P. Joe Bryant. Like, I just totally forgot to mention that, but he's the father of Kobe Bryant, and he ended up passing away, and I found out the news, like, earlier today. I was going to mention that in the first segment, but I went on a little tangent, and I completely forgot. So, I apologize for that. He's resting with, Kobe and his granddaughter, so yeah. Just wanted to bring that up to everyone's attention. I'm not really going to do a segment on that unless you guys want me to. But aside from that, that was just, the other news that's been going on in the basketball world. Now, back to Golden State and Lauri Markkanen. Now, according to this article, they appear to be trying to make a serious run at a trade, but right now there doesn't appear to be any traction. The Warriors have been the most engaged team for Markkanen in recent weeks. As league sources tell The Athletic, they have discussed a proposal around Moses Moody, multiple first-round picks, multiple pick swaps, and multiple second-round picks, according to this article. But, as I alluded to before, the Jazz, they want more players, and the recent trade that I mentioned before is what the Jazz are more interested in. Golden State seems to be somewhere between wanting to compete for a championship and just taking the next step towards an all-out rebuild. And it doesn't seem as if the Warriors can decide. Now, personally, if you have a prime Steph Curry, you want to try to do your best to win a championship whenever you can. Because you want to take advantage of the fact that Steph Curry can still run around screens, can still shoot, can still pass the ball, can still play make, and can still do all of these things. You want that. You need that to win. But it just makes it all the more difficult when you don't have Klay Thompson anymore. And really, one of the most overlooked things about the Golden State Warriors is that Steph Curry hasn't won a playoff game without Klay Thompson. Which, again, begs the question, do you want to try and compete for a championship, or do you try to rebuild? And personally, I would try to compete. Like, you have Steph, you have Draymond, I would try to compete. But again, like, assuming that Draymond takes on a much bigger role for the team, I don't really know if they have enough tools and enough pieces in order to compete if they are going to make this trade. Markkanen would mean that they are still focused on trying to get to another level. Still, the dynasty days are over now, according to this article, and there really is no salvaging them anytime soon. Markkanen would move the needle, but probably not enough to start talking about title success, which I agree with. I mean, like I said, Markkanen is good, but not that good. And Steph Curry, again, hasn't won a playoff game without Klay Thompson. After failing to pull off a trade for Paul George, and after losing Klay Thompson in free agency, the Warriors have remained steadfast in their pursuit of championship-level talent around Curry and Draymond Green. All options are on the table for Golden State, yet it is unknown if they have offered their best young talent, Jonathan Kuminga, for Markkanen, despite holding him out of a trade conversation for George. Now, that said, one league source told HoopsWire that he would be surprised if the Jazz would actually move on from Markkanen as he's become the type of player around whom you'd build. So again, on Utah Jazz's side, they seem to really want to build the team around Lauri Markkanen, which is something that I could see somewhat working, but at the same time, no. Again, Lauri Markkanen doesn't really move the needle on championship caliber team as one would think. But again, I could be totally wrong. So that's basically all that I have for you guys on this third segment, and Golden State being interested in Lauri Markkanen and things of that nature. So then we'll go ahead and go into the fourth segment, where I talk a little bit about some basketball news ranging from the summer league, ranging from Cameron Payne signing with the Knicks, things like that. And I'll talk about it right after this short break, so be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, we are going to be talking about basketball news. Now, this is going to range from, summer league stuff, my opinions on the summer league, this, that, and the other, particularly what happened, last night with Bronny James. But before I get into the Bronny James debacle and just things of that nature, I do want to talk about Cameron Payne signing his contract with the New York Knicks. Now, again, I was kind of surprised that Cam Payne, which is, honestly one of the best nicknames that the NBA could ever come up with, him has returned into the chat. What up, him? He says, yo, what's good? And again, Cam Payne, arguably the best nickname in the entire NBA, Cam Payne, it just has a great ring to it. And he signed a 1-year, $3.1 million contract with the New York Knicks. Now, the Knicks, they already have fantastic chemistry since, essentially the core parts of their team have all played in college together. And now they add Cameron Payne. Now, I have Cam Payne, he's a really, really good, second option, I guess you could say. Good player coming off the bench. He was fantastic in the playoffs for Phoenix. He was great for Philly, a great second scoring option for the team. The only real lack of Cam Payne's game is his defense, right? Because, his height being rather undersized makes him a little bit of a liability, but aside from that, he's a great option off of the bench and would provide great scoring option off the bench. And the fact that the Knicks would have him for just $3 million, it's pretty solid. I think it's pretty solid. Now, according to this article, the Knicks, they continue to add. Cam Payne spent last season initially with the Bucks before being traded to Philly in exchange for Patrick Beverley. He averaged 7 points, 2 assists, 1 rebound, and he has shown that he can score and lead the second unit rather effectively. So the only real problem that I see, this coming in for the Knicks, is the fact that, you have Jalen Brunson in the starting lineup, okay, but then coming off the bench, you have another guard that's just not very good at defense, and I don't really see the point in that. I don't really agree with that, but at the same time, scoring, you got to score, and the best way to win is to put the basketball in the hoop, and if you have players that can do that really effectively, you're not going to have a difficult time in winning. But again, I would much rather, the second unit be reserved for a defender, a guard that can play defense as opposed to a guard that's heavily offensive-minded, similar to how Jalen Brunson is heavily offensive-minded. Now, continuing along with what the article has said, Payne has struggled with some legal trouble in the past few weeks as he was arrested recently outside of Scottsdale home for providing the wrong name to police officers. Really weird. Again, that's just a very odd way to get arrested. And some may have speculated that the arrest would have impacted his future in the NBA, but clearly that doesn't seem to be the case. And Payne will continue to play for an Eastern Conference team, and arguably a contending team, the New York Knicks, and as they make their push to the NBA championship. Now, the Knicks are considered one of the favorites to make it out of the Eastern Conference, alongside, Boston, alongside, for some reason on this list, Philly is still on this list because they recently added Paul George. Me personally, I don't think the Philadelphia 76ers are going to go anywhere farther than the second round. They never do. They never will. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about that prediction. But again, I don't think the 76ers are going to make it far at all. But there's more news coming in from the Knicks. Now, this recently happened like 15 minutes ago, so I don't have a graphic for it up and ready. I apologize. But Mikal Bridges, he's expected to follow in Jalen Brunson's lead and likely sign a team-friendly extension with the Knicks to give the team more flexibility. And this is via the Stein line and Legion of Hoops on Twitter. So, him in the chat, he says, I think Paul George would go off. Yeah, we say that every single time and every single year that he joins a new team. And what happens? Like, nothing big has really happened for Paul George. I mean, he made the conference finals once with the Clippers without Kawhi, which is pretty impressive. But aside from that, rather underwhelming. Like, his time with the Clippers was rather underwhelming. And his time with OKC, when he had arguably his best year, when he was an MVP caliber player, he got bounced out of the first round. It's just like, meh. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit harsh, but again, I'm just all meh about that move. But really, with Mikal Bridges and taking this, team-friendly contract, going with the Knicks, this just allows the Knicks to get more talent. And really, it's like, what on earth is going on with these Villanova boys? Why are they not trying to get their money's worth? It's a very odd situation, but again, they really, really want to win. And that is one thing that Villanova teaches these guys. It's how to win. Now, again, Mikal Bridges was having a tough time winning on Brooklyn, but, that's besides the point. No one cares about that. Next, we are going to talk about, Bronny James and his little situation in the Summer League. And actually, before I go into that, him has some other comments. Tyrese, PG, and Embiid, somebody's going off, sure, but in the playoffs, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter in the postseason. It all just comes crumbling down for them. We saw it last year. We see it every single year. Like, one of the biggest trends for the 76ers is that every single time when they get a big-time player, like, when they get a player that they think is going to be very good, they always disappear in the postseason. It's happened all the time. Happened with Ben Simmons. Happened with James Harden. Happened recently with Tobias Harris. It's going to happen to Paul George, and it's probably going to happen with Joel Embiid again. Joel Embiid's play style in the playoffs doesn't work. It doesn't help the team. It actually, I think it makes the team worse. But it happens all the time with Philly. I don't know why. It just happens. Like, do I want it to happen? Do I want to see players fail? No, but it just happens. Like, it happens every single year. And I just don't really see that pattern really changing. But that's just me. Who knows? This could be the year. You never know. Now, we can go into let's talk about Bronny, because that's really like what the drama is going around in the league. So recently, in the recent Summer League game, the Lakers, they played the Boston Celtics. And Jaylen Brown was in attendance along with some other, WNBA players. And I forget exactly who was courtside, but I do know that Angel Reese was one of them. And one of the things that, while Jaylen Brown was talking, like courtside, someone was recording his conversation, right? Like, not really recording his conversation, but recording him speaking. And some other players on the internet, well, not other players, but some other people on the internet, they were able to, like, read their lips. I don't know how people do that. I don't know how people have that much time on their hands, but they do. And one of the things that he allegedly said, again, allegedly, I have no idea, because, like, they're reading people's lips. He said something along the lines of, I don't think Bronny is a pro player. Then the females that were sitting next to him, they agreed with him, saying, I think he's going to be in the G League. Then Jaylen Brown says, I don't think he's going to be in the G League because of his name, right? Because he's LeBron's son. And to be quite frank, he's played horribly in the summer league. Like, it's really bad. He was talked about as being a 3-and-D player, like, for the Lakers. He has yet to hit a single 3-pointer in the summer league. It's kind of aggravating, to be honest, and it's really disappointing because it's like, but again, one of the things that I will say is that he is the 55 overall pick in the draft. I don't know what people were expecting, and I don't know why the pressure on him is just so ridiculous, because again, it's like they act like he was the number 1 pick in the draft like his father when he really wasn't. And speaking of the number 1 pick, we have yet to hear anything about him. We have yet to hear anything about the 1 pick, the 2 pick, the 3 pick, the 4, the 5, the 6, barely anything. Like, they barely get any media attention. It's only on Bronny, and I think it's really unfair, because it's like, having all of that pressure, it's just going to hinder your performance. I know he said that, like, I know Bronny and LeBron, they all say that, like, the criticism, it doesn't matter. Like, he takes the criticism and he doesn't care. He cares. Like, it will affect you some way or another. If it doesn't, I mean, that's great, but he's definitely not playing like it doesn't. And again, I'm not going to be particularly harsh on him, because in my personal opinion, like, this is sort of what's to be expected coming in from the 55 overall pick in the draft. What makes it even more frustrating, though, is that there's already, like, highlights. There's literally a video up on the internet where it's, like, Bronny's highlights. And it's just, like, 3 minutes long, where he scored only 1 basket in the previous game. And I'm just like, what? Like, you're basically asking for him to have a target on his back if you do that. Because, like, the rest of the players that are playing rather well aren't getting as much attention as LeBron James' son. And he's just having a target on his back, right? Like, for criticism day after day, night after night. And on top of that, the rest of the draft picks that are probably going to feel a little bit probably going to have some spite or feel a little bit jealous of the fact that they aren't getting that much attention. That's just going to make them take it even more personally and try to give it their all when they're playing Bronny and, the Lakers, which, again, is something that a lot of these players really like to do. And he has another comment in the chat. Pat Bev / TJ McConnell is, like, his comparison at best. And to be honest, I think you're being a little bit too nice, because at least those guys can hit threes. I mean, he has yet to hit a single 3-pointer. And again, I don't want to be too harsh because he is the 55 pick, but hit a 3 at least. Like, you were hyped up to be a 3-and-D player, hit a 3. But again, like, I'm not going to talk about him. I'm not going to talk down on him like the rest of the media is doing that. He has all of the media to be doing that. And quite recently, this has nothing to do with basketball, but he participated in a Call of Duty tournament, and all of the comments over there was like, this is the wrong kind of shooting that he should be working on, which is obviously, it's kind of funny, but at the same time, it's like, he's the 55 pick. Like, calm down. He's not LeBron, that's for sure. Might have the same last name, but he's not LeBron. But aside from that, that is basically it for the 4th segment. So now we will go ahead and go into the 5th segment, where I talk about the WNBA. I give my little shift on the WNBA because Caitlin Clark is on the verge of doing something historic. Wow, what a surprise. It's almost like she's one of the best WNBA players we've ever seen. But I digress. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that in the 5th segment, right after this short break. So be sure to stay tuned. Hold on, there we go. I had my mic muted for a few seconds, and we are back for the 5th segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this final segment, I'm just going to talk about some WNBA basketball, some of the news, and some of the things that I would really like to talk about and bring to some people's attention, because again, the WNBA is finally gaining traction, and I wonder why they're gaining so much traction. It's almost like there's a certain player that everyone wants to watch. I say it so ironically and with such sarcasm and enthusiasm, because it's like, for some reason, the rest of the WNBA players, they cannot stand this woman at all. They really can't. They really do not like the attention that Caitlyn is giving the WNBA for whatever reason. And another thing that she's doing that literally has never been done in the history of basketball, again, never been done. So she is on pace right now to be the first player ever in the NBA and WNBA to ever lead the NCAA in assists per game, and then lead the professional league in assists per game as a rookie. No NBA player has ever led in the NCAA in assists and then immediately after led in either the NBA or the WNBA in assists. And Caitlyn is going to be the first woman. She's on pace, the first person ever to do that, right? Should also be noted that Angel Reese's double-double streak is it's over, done. So she broke her double-double streak is broken mainly because she couldn't score enough points. And one of the things that I noticed in the previous game was that she really wanted to score that final point. And I can understand why, but she was 3 for 13 from the field in the last game. That is disgusting. 3 for 13 on layups is absolutely disgusting. And I don't understand. Me personally, I used to like Angel. I really liked her gameplay. I really liked the way that she talked. I liked the way that she walked. I liked the way that she dressed. Kendrick Lamar reference right there. But again, the one thing that was that made her so thrilling to watch was that while she was playing, she was also talking, and she was talking that talk. And I like that. I like that when a player has game and they aren't afraid to talk. That's something that I like. But the big problem that I have is how she's trying to gain some sort of spotlight when she shouldn't gain any kind of spotlight. Her comments towards Caitlyn really soured me. I don't know if I'm just let me know what you guys think in the comments, but her comments towards Caitlyn and just being wanting the attention as much as Caitlyn has the attention, and just trying to peddle her way, I didn't really agree with it. I'm sorry, I just don't agree with it. Yes, she is a staple of her game, but let your game do the talking. If someone is gaining more attention than you and you're talking about it, it just sounds like you're jealous at that point. And I cannot stand that. That's a thing. That's a common trend with the rest of the league. The rest of the league just doesn't like her. It really doesn't make any sense to me. And recently, at the dinner table, we were actually talking about how there's a possibility that Caitlyn, she is a very popular, substitution player in case one of the other WNBA players gets injured in the regular season and can't play for the USA women's team. So, personally, I don't think she should be as much as I like Caitlyn, I don't think she should be one of the substitution players, because for one, the rest of the team doesn't really like her. The team isn't going to like that she's on the team for whatever reason. 2, Team USA women's basketball is already going to mop the floor with every single country, because most of the countries that compete in the Olympics, unfortunately, I don't really like saying this, but unfortunately, the women there, they just don't really get as much opportunity to play, that much competition. Because one of the reasons why USA soccer team is so good is because the women's team and the women's national teams in other countries have just started, just recently just started. It's not something that was placed and set in stone in the beginning of the, I guess you could say, the Olympics and their conception, right? So And obviously, the United States, arguably, like, we say that there are still some limitations that women have, unfortunately. But for the most part, women have way more rights here than they do in majority of the other countries. Again, majority of the other countries. I'm not saying all of them. It's a generalization. I don't really like doing generalizations, but for the most part, women here have much more opportunity to do what they want, be what they want, and have success in what they want. Now, they might not get paid as much, WNBA, but aside from that, they can still do what they want to do. And other countries, they don't really get that chance. So, and on top of that, the fact that everyone comes to the United States to play basketball, it's really like, it's expected for Team USA to just naturally destroy every other country. Him in the comments says Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark are trying to be Bird versus Magic. Honestly, yeah, I like that. I like that there is some sort of rivalry in the WNBA, something to somewhat look forward to, like a matchup that's been going on since college, and a matchup that relatively had them neck and neck for most of the time. And I still think that Angel Reese got benefited by having some better players than Caitlin, but aside from that, like, it's a rivalry. It's something that makes the team much more competitive. I don't like the comments that they give with each other, because while Larry and Magic, they were a rivalry, they at least respected each other's game, and they respected what each of them brought to the game. That's something that the NBA players, they always do with all of the athletes. Like, you have not heard not a single person say anything bad about Victor Wembanyama. And I always say this every single time. Not a single person said anything bad about Victor. But for the WNBA, oh my God, every single veteran athlete and every single player had some sort of bone to pick with Caitlin. And it bugs me. It really does bug me. But aside from that, we do have some WNBA news. Recently, and by recently I mean a few seconds ago, the Mercury just beat the Mystics 96-87. And, the Mercury, they easily dominated. Now, some of the players of the game, Natasha Cloud, she ended with a near triple-double, 12 points, 10 assists, and 9 rebounds. Kayla Copper, I almost messed that up, ended up getting 22 points, 7 rebounds, and 1 assist. Brittany Griner, you guys might know her for being, the person that was abducted by Russia, I guess you could say. Yeah, abducted or arrested by Russia. Pardon me. Arrested by the Russian government for, smuggling in, I believe it was a cartridge that she smuggled in. And yeah, it's like she got arrested for it, and that's really what she's most infamously known for. But again, like, she ended the game with 23 points and 7 rebounds. She is a beast. She's a monster. She got so much testosterone. And there was also Diana Taurasi, who is, in my opinion, not my favorite player, because she was the one that originally started the dislike towards Caitlin. Like, when people were literally in the beginning, she was the one saying, like, it's a really tough league, we're not gonna get all the easy stuff, this, that, and the other. And it should be noted that Caitlin has gotten double teamed at half court more than any female player that I've ever seen. Like, I have never seen any female be, and I'm speaking into the microphone, that's why you guys can barely see me. I have never seen a single female, like, get doubled as much as this woman gets doubled. But I digress. Him in the comments, he says, who do you predict will win the MVP first? Obviously, it's going to be Caitlin. Like, no question about it. She should be the MVP right now. No. But really, it will be Caitlin. I mean, like, she's definitely going to win Rookie of the Year this year. She's going to win the MVP first. And, just off of this year and from what I've seen, Caitlin brings a lot more value to the team than Angel Reese brings value to her team. As unfortunate as that may sound to those Angel Reese fans, Caitlin does a lot more on the court, brings a lot more value to the team, and, as a result of that, should be the most valuable player. Now, unfortunately, most of the time, the MVP, at least for the NBA, it's awarded to the best player on the best team. Now, I have no idea if that's, like, usually the same case for the WNBA, but I would imagine it would be the same case, because that's how you determine value. Best player on the best team, best player on the winning team, this, that, and the other. But again, I would rather I think it's Caitlyn because, she makes her teammates better. Her teammates can't catch the ball to save their lives, but she makes them better, and she demands double coverage. Now, the only thing that's really preventing her from being the best guard ever is her coach, in my opinion. Like, I think her coach is just holding her back to some sort of degree. And I could go on and on about, like, just the problems that the Fever have, but it's the problems that are sort of expected when you're being drafted first overall, because, again, you're being put in a situation where either the team or some of the players or some of the coaches just aren't the best because they were arguably one of the worst teams. But that's all that I really have on the WNBA news. I mean, not really much that needs to be talked about aside from the fact that, the Fever are actually winning now, and, Caitlyn is still on pace to doing something absolutely historic, but, a rookie leading the entire league in assists, come on. When has that ever been done? But aside from that, we are out of time for this final segment, and that is all that I have for you guys on this podcast, so thank you so much for tuning in to... Oh, wait just a second. There is one more comment in. So him says, I think that it will be Angel Reese only because she averages more stats in different categories, like Kobe getting robbed to Steve Nash. Yeah, sure, she might average more stats, but at the same time, you have to also understand how she's getting those stats. And most of her rebounds are ironically coming off of her own misses. And I'm sorry to say, but her stats, they aren't really that impressive when you really think about it. And on top of that, now the Chicago Sky, they aren't winning as much as, they were previously. So, again, I'm going to go ahead and look at the roster again just to, look at the stats because I don't really see her stats as that impressive. Again, 13 and 12, most of the time, she's not even shooting 50% from the field. Think about that. She's taking nothing but layups, and she can't even shoot 50% from the field. She's averaging 13 and 12, sure, but again, when you look at the efficiency, it's like, ew, what is that? And when you look at Caitlin Clark, now I'm trying to get her stats. Give me a second. Hold on. Caitlin Clark, she's averaging 16, 5, and 7. So, if anything, you can argue that her stats, overall, she's getting rebounds and she's also able to get assists. And it's not to mention her efficiency, while she's not really all that efficient, her effective field goal is 50.5%, which again, not that bad, especially since she's taking way more shots than just layups and taking way deeper three-pointers. But again, up for debate. So, like I said before, that's all I have for this podcast. Again, remember to leave a positive review, subscribe to the show. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And as usual, remember to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes it more interactive between myself and you guys. That is all I have for you today on this segment. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care. I'll see you guys tomorrow, where I'm actually going to be watching the game, Team USA. I'm actually going to be watching them play this time, as opposed to just, me completely forgetting that they played at 12 o'clock. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet.